and it's United States Japan Research Institute. And this is an NPO established in Washington, D.C., April 2009. And since then, we are having seminars like this. And also, we have every year 2 USJI weeks in such a way that Japanese scientists and scholars' opinion and politicians' opinion are well publicized through the occasions. And today's speech is to be made by, we are planning to have, before introducing our main speaker, I would like to mention one more thing. We are thinking of, if possible, to have a series of lectures by the future leaders of Japan and the United States, or who can lead our scientific field. And this is one of the trial. Today's speech is one of the trial of, if possible, to have a series of, let's say, seminars by potentially very important speakers. And in doing that, I think it's much easier for me to introduce one of our representatives from House of Representatives, Mr. Nishimura. Mr. Nishimura is from just nearby I was born in Osaka. He's from Kobe, and I would like to introduce him as a representative of Kobe area. Is that the correct way? And let's have a clap, big claps for Mr.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for Mr. Abe. I'm truly honored and thank you for the opportunity to make a speech before you, such distinguished ladies and gentlemen at USJI today. I was a foreign student at the School of Public Affairs of University of Maryland from 1991 to 1992, and was in the midst of my youth at the College Park. In those days, the Gulf War had broken out. In Japan, the self-defense force were not allowed to play a part overseas. I felt irritated about it. Partly because of such memories, it's a great pleasure today to talk about my thoughts on the way Japan should proceed and the roles Japan should play, centering on the significance and the importance of the US-Japan alliance. Allow me to tell you a story of the fall of Portugal first, not of Greece, gentlemen. Nowadays, we know that, in fact, Greece is in a great trouble, but this account is of the Portugal of 1755. As you may know, a great earthquake struck Portugal, a great oceanic power at that time. With this as a start, she went into decline. 250 years since then, Japan was hit by a great earthquake with a magnitude 9.0 on March 11, 2011, last year. This activity caused a gigantic tsunami and even accidents of a nuclear power plant. No one has yet been reported dead from the nuclear disaster, but the great number of 16,000 people lost their lives, and nearly 4,000 people are missing even now. This troubled shake has become a great disaster with the amount of the total damage of $235 billion. Well, I wonder if Japan will fall like Portugal? The answer is no. I'm confident that Japan is going to overcome and restore reassuringly. However, let me tell you this. Japan is now on the cusp of a big point of divergence. Prosperity or fall. Utopia or oblivion. The United States, at the time of the disaster in Japan, provided more than 20,000 soldiers to the stricken areas known as Operation Tomodachi. This succor demonstrated the soundness of the closest relations, which Japan and the United States have long fostered. Moreover, various forms of aid were donated from the people and the organizations of the United States. Most Japanese people thank the Japan-U.S. alliance and have renewed their realization of its meaning. Taking this opportunity today, I wish to express my appreciation from my heart to you all. At the very beginning of the history, I recount here the United States and Japan were foes in the Second World War. The fact that these two countries having totally dissimilar cultures and histories continue such a deepening allied relationship is deserving a special mention in the history of the world, does it not? And yet, it can be said that this allied relationship has a different meaning in terms of its significance in comparison between the era of the Cold War and the aftermath of 9/11 terrorism of the United States. It seems to me that the value of the United States-Japan alliance has become greater because of the reality of the terrorist attacks. The reason for the growth of the alliance is that in addition to deterrence, we are forced to cope with a real aggressive situation. In this respect, the meaning of the U.S. Marine Corps stationing in Okinawa is great for the United States. The meaning of quick response capability of the U.S. Marine Corps deployable immediately to Asia and the Middle East is essential. Very recently, President Obama announced that the U.S. Marine Division would station at Darwin in Australia. Surely, Darwin is a foothold where missiles from China and North Korea will not reach. But even so, geographical importance of Okinawa will never lose its value. On the other hand, even for Japan, the deterrence brought by the U.S. Marines' quick response capability is extremely great. This placement has a tremendous effect for the security of Japan. Of course, the people of Japan need to understand this fact well. Surely, it's very important that Okinawa should have its burdens reduced. But I must tell you that the U.S. Marines should remain in Okinawa. Also, the U.S.-Japan alliance has become an important infrastructure to create peace in the Asia-Pacific region. Even Asian countries, ASEAN countries, hearing from Japan's belligerent history, look forward to Japan's vital activities. And I'm sure that Japan must respond to their expectations for the peace and prosperity of Asia. Here is an anecdote. When I was a parliamentary vice minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I explained to the US government and won its understanding that Japan would launch a quasi-zenith satellite to complement US GPS. Until then, Japan had conducted only academic research on space. But in 2008, I acted as a proponent for the Aerospace Basic Act, enacted across the party lines to make satellites for security. Of course, the satellites are not for invading other countries, but to defend the safety of Japan within the scope of the Constitution of Japan. Last year, For the first time, number one quasi-zenith GS satellite to complement the GPS was launched. Three more quad-zenith satellites are scheduled to be launched. If succeeding, 7 sets of GZSS in total will fly in the skies of Asia and Oceania from Japan in a manner to complement US GPS, making it possible to accurately spot the geographical and space information. This GZ satellite has been used for the restoration works of the recent great earthquake, and it is expected to be utilized for counter-disaster measures and safe navigation of ships. I want to stress that Japan has long so far so much depended on the United States, even in the area of space. But now, at our own cost, Japan is trying to complement and strengthen the schemes of the United States. For the future, not only the area of space, but I'm confident that also the relations of both countries should be enhanced in the area of counter cyber terrorism and missile defense, and thereby the stability of the Asia-Pacific region should greatly be increased. On the extension of the strength of US-Japan alliance, the ease of restrictions of the 3 principles of arms export took place recently. Japan prohibits arms export basically, but by this ease of restraints, as for the US-Japan joint development of such devices as missile defense, it becomes possible for Japan to export the United States Japanese technology. Moreover, I wish to endorse the exercise of the right of collective self-defense. In principle, it is desirable that the Constitution should be amended and stipulates clearly the justification of constitutional amendment will take too much time. The actual international situation changes day by day. I feel that by a certain revision of interpretation of the Constitution, the exercise of the right of collective self-defense should be recognized. I'm sure that this exercise is to connect to upgrading the US-Japan allied relations. On the other hand, from the viewpoint of strengthening the relation with European states, with which Japan is taking part in PKO activities, my thought is that Japan should revise its stance on the standard of use of arms to meet international standards, so that Japanese troops who engage in the same activities as their international brethren could protect and defend them. In this context, when I was a parliamentary vice minister for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Counter-Piracy Act was established to counter piracy in the Bay of Aden off the coast of Somalia. The law defines that Japanese self-defense forces protect foreign ships as well and ease the use of arms. I think this reality of coping with stateless outlaws is a big step in extending the roles of Japanese self-defense force can play. Last year, an overseas base of Japanese self-defense forces was set up in Djibouti for the first time. Thinking over the time when I was studying at the University of Maryland, I do feel a generation gap. It is an epoch-making change. In order to create world peace, I support the idea that Japanese self-defense forces should conduct such overseas activities. Based on togetherness with fine coordination with the United States in accordance with the Japan-U.S. alliance, I feel that Japan should strengthen cooperation with the European states and NATO. In this connection, I may be allowed to make some comments on North Korea. First of all, China, with a great deal of resolution, now hopes for a stable Kim Jong-un regime of North Korea. Confusion and destabilized North may bring out an outflow of refugees to China. More than that, if the North explodes in an insurgent situation, it will be overwhelmed by the United States and South Korea. And the North might forcibly be absorbed by South Korea. China fears such a situation. At the time of transition from Kim Il-sung to Jong-il, there was a move of insurgency 2 years after the death of Kim Il-sung. I presume that China thinks that although the situation seems stable at present, vigilance should never be relaxed. My second view is that North Korea may wish President Obama to be re-elected in the United States presidential election. The second term of president normally seeks the result of performance and achievement. Actually, it seems to me that even President George W. Bush, at his second term of administration, conceded considerably in a way of removing the specification of a terrorist supporting state. In concession, more likely, is concession more likely, especially when the administration is of Democrats. Let me change the topics to that of economy. I've seen various things up close at the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, including the trade friction between the US and Japan and its negotiation. Now, we don't have locking of horns over the issues. And again, I feel a generation gap. But you may know that there is a heated debate over the issue of TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. I'm a person who promotes Japan to participate in the negotiation in the early stage. In this connection, Mr. Taku Eto, a member of the our Congress, and my intimate friend of mine, is weary. He is sitting over there. And if time permits, I wish him to talk a little bit about this TPP concept. As for me, I feel the role of the TPP important for development of the Asia Pacific. I'm confident that the free trade, promotion of investment negotiations, and protection of intellectual property rights will increase one another's wealth. In the current state, where the WTO has no function, the TPP should be extremely important for the colleagues of developed countries, such as the United States, Australia, and Japan, to form new rules to be like a model. And it must be important for us to demand over countries in the future, that is, newly rising states like China, Russia, to conform the rules as above for the investment and protection of the international property through such forms as APEC and ASEAN Plus 6. I'm never going to emphasize that only the promotion of TPP is important. But I advocate that on the basis of the TPP, in various types of frameworks such as APEC and ASEAN Plus 6, such circumstances as free trade and investment could be multi-layered and competitive in the Asian Pacific region. The TPP will become a primer for that architecture. In this connection, I may demonstrate, as Japan has shown an interest in the TPP, the EU, which has never faced Japan, has begun to have an interest in EPA negotiation with Japan. At present, we are conducting a prior consultations called a scoping exercise. I can say that just centering on Japan as a free economic sphere is now in the process of multi-layered structuring in the Asia-Pacific region and between Europe and Japan. Even for the sake of development of the world economy, I feel Japan would like to play a core role. Expecting that core role for Japan, I wish to realize that there is a clear distinction for Japan not to be able to concede in the fields of food security or health insurance program. If I may illustrate this unique distinction, let me raise the case of the agriculture. The United States has in its agriculture 100 times the acreage of a farm as Japan. And Australia has 1,500 times as Japan. Still, as can be seen in your very favorite Japanese food, Japan is confident that and proud of producing appetizing farm products superior to those of America and Australia. However, whatever the products, the scale is too different in terms of the farmland. And there is much cost difference. This example compares the United States and Australia. Even if Japan would decide to liberalize imports of agricultural products, we must take heed that only Australian farm products would be imported. The purpose of my visit this time is to explain properly about Japan's position, together with listening to the idea of the United States, and to make a profound effort to smooth the TPP negotiation with Japan-U.S. coordination. Add to Japan's economy, deflation continues. In addition to the super devaluation of the dollar against Japanese yen, and the rise of energy costs caused by the incident of a nuclear reactor is added, all causing a harsh economic condition. The trade balance between January and November last year, 2011, shows a deficit of nearly $30 billion, approximately 2.3 trillion yen. Payment overseas for alternative fuels such as oil, LNG, and coal, along with the stop of nuclear reactors, has been increasing. The solution, first, I think, is primarily that drastic monetary policy must be implemented in order to rectify the deflation. Moreover, to correct the excessive devaluation of the dollar and euro, I feel it's necessary to have a new ruble accord in the 21st century, associated with the ruble accord of 1987, which was formed in cooperation among Japan and the United States and Europe in order to rectify the excessive progressive devaluation of the dollar after the 1985 Plaza Accord. Second, in order to curb the rise of the energy costs, I have a strong hope for the United States to expand the supply to Japan of shale gas. As for the European debt crisis, the future prospects are murky. I don't have enough time to make comments on this, but it must be correct to say that the problem of Europe must be solved within Europe. However, prolonged debt crisis in Europe will have a greatly negative effect on the world economy. Japan is being disturbed by the appreciation of the yen and depreciation of the euro. Even China, which must have money enough to spare, has become cautious. I heard an interesting episode in Beijing last year. Right after the Chinese announcement to provide school buses to the EU, accidents of school buses occurred one after another in China. Apparently, those accidents happened allegedly because more than 2 times the quota of school children was squeezed into a bus. So many critics appeared on the net saying that China should design and supply its own school buses before aiding the other countries. The net was overloaded with anger. So China is disqualified to support Europe, leaving only Japan. I support the idea of the Bank of Japan create a fund to acquire foreign bond with a scale of $600 billion, about 50 trillion yen. Doing this fund acquisition will become an aid to Europe and the rectification of the yen appreciation and the euro depreciation. As the director of Treasury and Finance Division of the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan and responsible for policy making, I study various methods, including enactment of legislation. About China, United States, Japan, Europe, and Asia will not be Asian states will not be divided by China, and we must coordinate in multi-country frameworks and urge China to firmly be aware of responsibility as a member of international society and to achieve responsibility as the second largest economic power of China, as it is developing with some problems with instability. The difficulty of ruling the inner country is well understood, but I'm sure that it is important for China to engage in bilateral dialogue and at the same time to repeat dialogue at the multi-country forums. So far, for so long, I have mentioned my thoughts on the roles of Japan should play, as well as the situation surrounding world peace and the economy. Let me emphasize again that the role of the US-Japan alliance has become more and more imperative after the 9/11 terrorism. And it has become the basic, extremely indispensable infrastructure for the peace of, and prosperity of the Asian Pacific region. May I conclude my speech by praying for the design of the closer coordination between Japan and the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Nishimura. Let's have good questions and let's have good discussions. And just one simple rule. If you have a comment or question, please come to the microphone. And we need your name and organization, and of course, question and comment. Shall we open? Okay, go ahead, sir.
You were talking about defense, and one of the Hugh Grindstaff, THAS for diplomats. One of the things that have been passed around in Washington is a closer alliance between India, Japan, and the U.S. What are your thoughts on that?
国防のことに関してちょっと触れられましたけれども、ワシントンではインド、日本、米国の同盟ということについてよく話題になるんですけれども、それについてはどういうふうに考えますか。
So, may I speak in Japanese? 実は私はもう国会議員になってからインドに16回か7回行ってます。毎年数回訪問しています。
Yeah, actually, after I became a Diet member, I have visited India 16 or 17 times altogether. Every year, I'm visiting India a few times.
特に安倍政権の時に、安倍総理は日本とアメリカ、オーストラリア、インディアで4社でいろんなことを考えていこう、戦略的な対話をしようということを提案をされました。
Especially during time of the Prime Minister Abe, Prime Minister Abe emphasized that the Japan should consider the strategy in the framework of U.S., Japan, Australia, and India collaborations.
私も非常に共鳴をして、安倍総理とも相談をしてインドにそのような話を伝えに行ったことがあります。その時のインド側の答えは、インドは非同盟主義を持っているから同盟のようなものはできない。ただし、いろいろ話をした結果、ただし対話、4者でいろんな対話をすることはいいということで対話を始めようとしたわけであります。その後、実は政権交代で自民党は政権を失いましたので、その後、それはなくなってしまいましたけれども、日本もインドと防衛の交流を今始めてますし、日本、アメリカ、インドが共同の演習をしたりですね、いうことは非常に有意義なことだと思っています。ただ、今申し上げたように、インドは同盟という形にはなかなかならないと思いますので、対話を常に行い、そしてそうした交流を深めていくということが大事だと思います。
Yeah, actually, I really, felt, same way as the Prime Minister Abe. And, actually, at that time, I visited India to convey the Prime Minister's message to people in, India. And at that time, the response from India was, since India is a non-allied country, they cannot really form the alliance. But however, the dialogue is a good thing. So they are willing to, conduct a dialogue with Japan. Between Japan, among Japan, United States, and India, I think it is a very good thing, to promote a dialogue, although we may not be able to establish formal alliance. And actually, also, we are, beginning to conduct, Japan-India dialogue on the, defense issues. And I think it will be, great if we can conduct a joint exercise, among U.S., Japan, and India. And I think it's a, dialogue is a good thing, although it may not be a, alliance.
Thank you very much.
はじめまして、Donna-san. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet television programs. And in your bio, you have technology development policy, including new environmental friendly energy sources. How do you see possible cooperation between Japan and the United States to evolve these new energy sources that would be both of help to Japan after the tsunami and the nuclear breakdown and the future of green jobs in the United States? ありがとう。
私の名前はサム・ハンコックと言いまして、エメラルド、財団の方にいますけれども、ちょっとバイオの中にですね、履歴の中に技術開発について、特に環境に優しいエネルギー源についての技術開発ということがあったんですけれども、日米間でそういったような新しいエネルギーの源の開発を進めると、それによって非常にクリーンなエネルギーを開発することを通じて、日本の津波あるいはそういった震災の後のですね、新たなエネルギー源を確保し、また米国において雇用を創出していくことに助けになるようなそういったエネルギー源の共同開発ということについてどういうふうに考えられますか。
はい、3点申し上げたいと思います。一つは石炭、やはり、アメリカもそうですし中国もそうですし、世界的にはやっぱり石炭の使用量が非常に多いで、石炭は、CO2 もたくさん出しますので、この石炭をいかに利用しながらもクリーンなエネルギーに変えていくかということで、石炭のガス化 IGCC ですけれども、これを アメリカもやってますし、日本も技術、最先端の技術がありますので、こうしたものをさらにいいものにしていくのを日米でやるというのは、非常にいい方法だというふうに思います。
I like to mention the 3 points. Coal is a great amount of coal is used as an energy source by the United States, China, and many other countries. However, the coal emits carbon dioxide. While we continue using great amount of coals, but at the same time we make it as a clean energy source. So I think that will be very useful. For example, gasification of coals. I think that is a very good idea. So I think that should be promoted.
2つ目は再生可能エネルギーです。これは日本も、昨年、これ私も中心になって、条文を作りまして、いわゆる買取エネルギーの買取法案、再生可能エネルギーの買取法案を買取法を成立させましたので、今年の7月から、施行されます。特にこの3年間を集中的に日本では再生可能エネルギーを増やそうということで、やることになりますので、太陽光、それから風力、それから潮力、波の力ですね、潮力、それから日本では非常に、少ないんですけれども、実は世界の地熱発電ですね、地熱発電、これは世界の7割ぐらいを日本の機器、設備でやってますけれども、日本では、国立公園の規制があったり、なかなか進んでなかったんですけれども、この、地熱発電、こうしたものをぜひ強化をしたいと思ってますので、日米でこのさらに効率性を良くするところと安定性、不安定、太陽光も風力も不安定ですので、蓄電池のような技術が必要ですから、こうしたものについて日米で共同で研究できる部分があればいいと思います。
Yeah, my second point is about renewable energy source. Last year, I have with other members of Diet, succeeded in enacting legislation purchasing renewable energies in Japan. So that law is going to be in effect starting July this year. So in Japan, for the coming 3 years, we are planning to expand the use of renewable energy to the great extent, including solar energy, wind energy, and also the wave energy, and also geothermal energy source. But geothermal energy source is not so much utilized in Japan yet because of domestic regulations. However, in the worldwide market, 70% of geothermal energy is being generated using Japanese equipment and devices. However, anyway, we are planning to greatly increase the usage of renewable energy, and I think we should really promote a US-Japan collaboration on the development of renewable energy, and especially make renewable energy more efficient and stable, because especially solar energy and wind energy are not so stable. So we should make technological development to make them more stable and efficient.
最後に3点目がシェールガスですね。これは非常に安い価格でアメリカの中でもこれから生産されることになりますけれども、これへの日本からの投資もぜひ積極的に行っていきたいと思いますし、LNG のマーケットは日本が世界最大のマーケットで、いろんな技術的なノウハウ、蓄積もありますので、ぜひこれは日米で一緒にいろんなことできればと思います。特にLNG についてはですね、原発の事故の後、 中東への依存、特にカタール、日本はですね、カタールへの依存とロシアへの依存が非常に高まってますので、ホルムズ海峡が何かあったときに、カタールから届かなくなりますし、ロシアとの関係を考えても依存を高めすぎるのはどうかと思いますので、そういう意味で日米の関係に基づいて、日本とアメリカでこのシェールガスについてももっと、生産を増やし活用していく方法が考えられればと思います。
My third point is, utilization of shale gas. Shale gas, tend to be, cheap, and the United States has abundant amount of shale gas. So, as a Japan, we like to promote the investment in the shale gas development in the United States. And also, LNG, in terms of LNG, Japan is the world's largest market of LNG. And we have also technological, know-how on the LNG accumulated in Japan. And Japan is really dependent on the, import of LNG from Qatar and Russia. But however, if there is some problem developed in the Strait of Hormuz, then the LNG import from Qatar would be threatened. And also, I think it would not be so good for Japan to deepen the dependence on the LNG in Russia. So I think between U.S. and Japan, we should put more effort on the joint development of shale gas as an energy source.
Thank you.
My name is Stanley Kober. This is on the Japan-U.S. alliance. Alliances tend to provoke the formation of other alliances. 100 years ago, you had the Triple Alliance, which was countered by the Triple Entente. After the Second World War, you had NATO, which was then opposed by the Warsaw Pact. There is now the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which unites China and Russia. And India was mentioned by Hugh. India is an observer member, candidate member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and expects to be elevated to full membership. So in this case, by emphasizing alliances, won't we divide the world once again?
で、コバーで言いますけれども、日米同盟、ということを言われましたけれども、同盟というのは他にも、それに敵対する同盟というのを作る、要因になるというふうに考えられます。で、100年前には三国の同盟がありまして、それに対してまた別の三国の同盟が、それに対して対峙するという状況が生まれましたし、第二次世界大戦の後には、NATO が同盟として結成されて、それに対してワルシャワ条約機構が、それに対抗する形で、生まれていきました。で、現在上海協力機構、米中ロシア加わっていろいろそういう同盟を作っているんですけれども、それにさらにインドが加わって4つの国の同盟ということがなされていこうとしている状況なんですけれども、しかしながらやはり同盟ということをあまり強調しすぎることによって、かえって世界をですね、いくつもの同盟に分断することにならないかと。そういうなる可能性があるんではないかと思うんですけれども、それについてどういうふうに考えますか。
はい、非常にいいご質問だと思いますが、軍事面の同盟もそうですし、TPP のように、地域ごとのその自由貿易の仕組みもですね、いずれもブロック化につながるんじゃないかという質問をよくいただき、そういう懸念をよく聞きます。
I think it's a very good question, I think. Yeah, of course, there is a military alliance. Also, there is a free trade regional alliance such as TPP. And in both cases, some people express concern about those alliances promote and lead to the regionalization and kind of regional divisions.
で、その上で、そうならないようにする努力とか枠組みが今の世界にはできつつあるというふうに思っています。その一つが、同盟バイラテラルな同盟だけではアライアンスだけではなくてマルチのいろんな枠組みがあります。アジアにも ARF というリージョナルフォーラムがありますし、いろんなマルチの枠組みがありますので、そこはカバーできる分野も多いと思います。
But however, I think there are some framework that can prevent, forming of the blocks, regional blocks, in today's world. So, in addition to bilateral relationships, but there is also multilateral framework, such as ARF in, Asia, which is a regional Asian alliance. So I think through those multilateral framework, there is some kind of a mechanism that prevent the formation of the regional blocks.
それから2つ目は経済的なつながりが以前に比べて、インテグレートされているというかどんどん経済的な深まりが依存関係が深まってますので、例えば日本と中国でももはや中国は日本にとって最大の貿易国になってますし、最大の投資先になっています。日本とロシアの関係を見ても、日本はロシアから石油 LNG の1割近くをもうロシアに依存するような形になってますので、そういう意味では確かに日米同盟が他のいろんな仮にですね、他のいろんな枠組みを作ることを誘発するようなことがあっても経済関係がもっと深くなってますので、以前の第一次世界大戦第二次世界大戦の時のような、ことにはならないと思いますし、そうならないように努力していくのが我々政治家の役割だと思います。
And also, there is increasing mutual economic dependence among different countries. Between Japan and China, the mutual economic dependence has been increasing, and China by now is the largest trade partner and also the market for the investment. And also between Japan and Russia, also there have been increasing economic relationship. And in terms of oil and LNG, which is the natural resources of Russia, Japan 10% of Japan's LNG and oil is dependent on Russia. So between U.S. and Japan, by forming a U.S.-Japan alliance, even if there is some other kind of alliance that kind of confront with a U.S.-Japan alliance. However, because of deepening economic relationship and economic tie, I don't think there will be a repeat of hostility, during World War I or World War II. And also, I think it is, the role and responsibility of, we politicians to prevent, that kind of situation.
もう一点だけ追加をすると付け加えるとすれば、先ほどちょっと申し上げましたけど、日本が TPP に関心を示したから日本と EU の EPA も動き出しましたし、日中韓の3カ国の FTA、EPA についても議論が加速されました。そういう意味で、むしろ日米でこういう議論を開始したことによってアジア、ヨーロッパとのいろんな議論も進んでますので、そういう意味では敵対するというよりかは 一緒に統合していくことを加速する方向で働くことが大事だと思っています。
And let me add one more point. As soon as Japan announced, Japan's willingness to participate in the TPP negotiations, that kind of spurred EU, discussions with Japan on EPA, and also between Japan and China and among Japan, China, and South Korea, there have been more, stimulated discussions on the FTA and EPA. So by discussing, TPP on the TPP between U.S. and Japan, that kind of spurred more dialogue between Japan and Asian countries and Japan and European countries. So I think rather than kind of provoking confrontations, I think this has an effect of promoting integrations.
Thank you very much.
I'm Steve Winters, local researcher. I've heard some commentators here in Washington, D.C. suggest that for Japan to join the TPP would constitute the third great opening of Japan to the world, the first one being the opening to the world during the Meiji Restoration. Now, knowing something about the history myself, we can see the enormous changes in Japanese society that occurred during the Meiji Restoration. In your view, is joining the TPP a decision for Japan of such a momentous level as suggested by these commentators? And if it is, what momentous changes do you foresee possibly, or how do you foresee this great change in Japan if they join?
スティーブ・ウィンターといいまして、この地元の、研究者ですけども、ワシントン DC の、評論家で、日本が TPP に参加するということは、日本にとっては第三の、開国を意味するというふうにコメントした人がいます。で、第1番目の、開国は明治維新、の時の、開国ですけども、私自身、歴史についてはいろいろ学んでいるわけですけれども、明治維新というのは非常に日本に巨大な大きな社会的な変化をもたらしたそういった開国でした。で、もしその評論家の見方がその通りであるとすれば、TPP に日本が参加することを決定したということは、非常に大きなですね、日本の社会的な変化を引き起こすということになると思うんですけれども、そういったような日本の社会の TPP に参加することを通じての、激変、ということについてどういうふうに見ておられますか。
はい、私も第三の開国という言い方をすることがありますが、日本が自ら開国というのはですね、やや自虐的な意味があって、日本は閉鎖的だということを自ら言ってるみたいなもんなんで、最近はもう私はあんまり使わないようにしています。まずそのことを申し上げたいと思います。
Yeah, I sometimes characterize the participation in the TPP as a third opening of Japan. But however, it implies that Japan is a kind of very closed country which is very close to the international community. So the connotation isn't so good. So I stopped using that term.
まず申し上げたいのは日本の関税はほとんどゼロに近いという、おそらく先進国の中で最も低いレベル、全体で見るとですね、平均して全部で見るとほとんどないのと同然なのが現状ですので、関税面から言うと日本はもうすでにオープンになっているということをまず申し上げたいと思います。
Let me just touch on the tariff. In terms of tariff, Japanese import tariff is almost zero, and I think it is the lowest in terms of level of tariff among the advanced countries. So in terms of tariff, already Japan is very much open to the international community.
ちなみに2% 強平均するとですね 2. 数%だと思いますが、そういうレベルです。ただおそらくアメリカの方もそうですけれども、おっしゃっているのは農業分野、一次産品についてだと思います。この点については先ほど申し上げましたけれども、我々すべて農業分野をゼロにするのはなかなか厳しいというのは正直なところを思っています。これはもう規模が圧倒的に違いますので、そこは難しいと思ってますが、ただ交渉でいろんなことを私は議論していけばいいと思ってますし、さらに言えば、TPP に入る入らないにかかわらず日本の農業はもう非常に高齢化してますし、改革をしなきゃいけないのは事実ですので、いずれにしても農業政策については改革をしていきたいというふうに思ってます。そういう意味で、TPP の議論は農業改革のさらなるきっかけになったという意味では、きっかけになったという意味はあるというふうに思います。
Yeah, actual, figure of, Japanese import, tariff, average tariff is about a little over 2%. And, but when, there is, some people, mentioning about, opening up, Japanese, Japan as a country, through TPP, I think people in the United States tend to focus on the agricultural sector in Japan. And, especially the, kind of agricultural products and, primary, agricultural product, that kind of area, they have in mind, I think. But because Japanese agriculture's size is very different, it's very big, and so I think it will be difficult to make agricultural import tariff totally zero. So I want you to understand that point. But however, I think we should openly discuss about agricultural trade and the tariff through the negotiations. And also, when we think about Japanese agricultural sector, the farmers' age had been, advancing and becoming more aged. So even without TPP, Japanese agricultural sector is, coming to the stage where some kind of a reform is inevitable. So I think in that sense, TPP became, I think, a very good trigger for Japanese agricultural sector reform.
ちなみに農業分野の関税の平均は今、江藤さんからメモを見せてもらいますが 12% ということですし、もし後ほど時間があれば江藤さん、専門家、農業政策の専門家の江藤さんおられますので、またお話しいただければと思います。
By the way, just Diet member Eto just passed me the note that he is an expert on the agriculture, and Japanese agriculture sector, the tariff is 12% on average. If time allows, I'd like to ask Mr. Eto to make a further comment maybe later if time allows.
Okay. I was just looking at my watch. The 6 o'clock, we plan to finish this at 6 o'clock. So the
Just
last,
one
yes,
small
the
question,
last.
sir. I'm head of Chubu Electric Power Washington office. Thank you very much for your remarks. Back to energy. You touched on the national security from many aspects. But I should think in Japan, when you talk about energy, you don't look at the energy security issues, I should think. But here in the United States, policymaker or statesmen talk about energy. They cannot put the security issues away, or they cannot leave out the security. So could you comment on this? Possible? It might be very sensitive.
中部で
Especially for the nuclear. Thank you. Thank you very much.
中部電力の支社長をしてますけれども、エネルギー、ということを考えるときに、エネルギー安全保障という、観点があると思うんですけれども、日本でエネルギーということを話すときには、あまりエネルギー安全保障という観点から話さない傾向があると思います。ただ、こちらのアメリカでエネルギーということを話すときには、必ずもうエネルギー安全保障というのが不可分の、そういうことになっているわけですけれども、特に原子力ということを含めてですね、このエネルギー安全保障ということについてどういうふうに考えられるか。
はい、これも話し出すとすごく長くなりますので、ポイントだけをお話しますと、ちょっと先ほどの質問の中でお話をしましたけれども、ロシアへの依存、あるいは中東への依存が、原発の事故の影響が非常に高まってますので、これについては、やっぱり特定の国、特定の地域に依存しすぎないようにということがすごく大事だと思います。特に中部電力さんはカタールから相当 LNG を買っておられますので、ホルムズ海峡何かあれば大変なことになると思いますけれども、その上で日本は石油危機を経験しましたので、石油の依存、それから中東への依存を減らそうということで、いろんな多角化をしてきました。で、その中の一つが原子力を高めようということで我々もやってきました。で、昨年の事故がありまして、これから原子力をどう考えるかという日本では大きな議論になっています。私自身は原子力について、特によく、長くなりますけど、まさに圧力容器、継ぎ目のない圧力容器を作れるのは日本の企業だけですので、本当に事故の可能性、万が一何かあっても漏れる、放射能が漏れる可能性の非常に低い、その技術の高いものを日本は作れるわけですので、これは、海外にもこれを輸出してますし、他の国が作る継ぎ目があるガスが漏れるかもしれないものよりかは非常に安全性高いわけですから、こうしたものを世界で貢献していくことは大事だというふうに思ってますし、私は、当面原子力の依存度は減っていきますし、将来も減っていく。しかし、最低限のところ、一定程度の原子力、特に最新鋭の安全性の高いものに変えていきながらですね、リプレイスしながら残していく必要性があるんだというふうに思ってます。で、これは国内でこれから大いに議論をしていくことになりますので、これは国会でも、あるいはいろんな場でぜひ議論をしていきたいというふうに思っています。再生可能エネルギーも増やしていきますけれども、急には増えませんので、将来、我々、先ほど申し上げたとおり3年間集中的に入れますし、将来にわたって再生可能エネルギーを増やしていきます。太陽光、風力もできるだけ多く、から地熱、安定的な、より安定的な地熱というようなものも増やしていきたいと思ってますけれども、これ時間がかかりますので、その間、やっぱり原子力は再稼働していかなきゃいけないと思いますし、一定、LNG、シェールガス、こうしたものに対する依存度も必要になってくると思いますので、そうしたことを全体としてぜひ機会があればまた議論をさせていただきたいと思います。今日は30分という時間でありましたので、あまり多くは申し上げませんでしたけれども、私にとっても非常に大きな、特にライフワークと思ってますので、また議論できる機会があればと思います。ありがとうございます。
Yeah, since I started explaining detailed, I think it would take a long time. Since time is limited, so I like to just touch on the points. And after Japanese nuclear power plant accident, there have been increase of the energy dependence, Japan's energy dependence on Russia and Middle East. So I think it is not so good for the Japanese national security to depend just one area for the other energy source. And for example, a Tube electric power company is importing lots of LNG from Qatar. So if there is some problem develop in the Middle East, that can be very critical situations. I think, since Japan has experienced, oil crisis, Japan has been trying to lessen the, dependency on the oil and also Middle East. So as a part of that consideration, we started, developing a nuclear power source. But however, because of last year's nuclear power plant accident, that is put in the big question. But however, in terms of a Japanese nuclear power plant technology, for example, Japan has world's best technology to develop and manufacture the seamless pressure vessel in the nuclear, power plant. And for example, Japan is, exporting that kind of, pressure vessel to the overseas. So I think, we should really, increase the safety and of the nuclear power plant using a Japanese technology, and thereby, contribute to the, the international community. I think we, talked about renewable energy source, solar and wind powers and other, renewable energy source. Of course, as I mentioned, in the coming 3 years period, we are putting a lot of emphasis on the nuclear, renewable, energy development. And in the long term, we try to promote a renewable energy source. But however, it will take, a great amount of time to, achieve, that kind of development. So meanwhile, I think it is inevitable for us to utilize, the, nuclear power, and also, the shale gas, some other energy source like that. I think it is necessary. So therefore, I think we should really develop, the safe nuclear, power plant, and even if something happens, there is a very least chance of, the radioactive leakage. That kind of, power plant should be developed, and I think we have to, use nuclear power source to some extent. But nevertheless, this is this energy issue is really my life, one of my life work. So I like to continue, engaging in the discussion, both in Japan and also in the national diet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.